It looks like more and more business owners are struggling to get access to business credit, whether they are an existing business or they are a brand new business, whether it's an S Corp, LLC, C Corp. And so in this video, I want to share with you what I shared with a recent client of mine on what banks are looking at right now that's making them tick, and some adjustments that you can make along the way to help reduce or just flat out eliminate denials along the way as you're getting capital to scale your business. The first reason why most small business owners get denied, whether they are just starting out or they've been in business for some time, is something known as a cap stack, aka a capital stack. What this means is that there is a prioritization in which the debt is paid. So in layman terms is let's say that you go to a party, and at that party there's 3 people that lended you money or that lent you money that you have to pay back. There's going to be the first person that you've prioritized that no matter what, this is the person that I'm going to pay let's say the first round of funds back to. And then there's the second person. And then lastly, there's like the third person that you kind of like left for last for whatever reason. This has nothing to do with the amount. It has everything to do with the agreement that you have with that person. So even if you owe that person $10 and you said, hey man, no matter what, I get paid next week, you're going to be the first person that I pay back. And then it starts trickling down into the next person and then the next person and then so on and so forth, right? It's the same thing in the lending world. And so the way that this affects someone from getting access to capital, not just for what they need today, but also as they start to scale, which is something that we focus on with our clients, is scaling the business capital as their business and as their operations grows. It's on a continuum. And so it looks like this right here. Picture this as let's say, as a funding, we'll call it continuum, right? So you'll have like your first batch, that's 50K as an example. You have your next batch, you're scaling, let's say that's 150. Your next batch is, let's say, 250, so on and so forth. And it continues as the business continues to grow. But what ends up happening along the way is that you have, there we go, I thought I X'd it out. You have these breaking points. And the breaking points are where the cap stack comes into play, which is, hey, if let's say you're a bigger bank and you want to have what's called a first position lien, this is called a first position lien, then we're not going to lend to you until one of 2 things happens. Number 1, you pay off previous debts, aka if you have extended business credit cards, business credit lines, equipment financing, like whatever that is, we're not going to lend to you until that debt comes down, which is right here. Like you hit this bottleneck. Sometimes it happens right here. Sometimes it happens right here, because again, we're dealing with the cap stack. And so you have that payoff that needs to happen, or you can request to have them as the first position lien holder, right? You can have them, and then you'll swap, and then you'll have somebody come in as maybe a second position, or they're already in a second position. This typically happens more with smaller banks, regional banks, credit unions, where there's a proclivity to them that they're naturally going to gravitate as a second position. And then with first positions, you'll see big banks like, I'll give you a couple. You'll have Chase, you'll have B of A, Bank of America, you'll have Wells Fargo. Those are typically banks right here. Let me kind of move this to the side. Those are typically banks right here that'll naturally gravitate into this, what we call this first position. And so if you are maybe in a process right now where you've been trying to scale your business capital and you keep hitting that wall and you're wondering, man, I can't scale past 100. I can't scale past 250. I can't scale past, let's say 75 grand, whatever that is. It's the order in which you are acquiring capital could be misplaced or could be out of order. That's the first reason why, again, most small business owners get denied. They don't understand this concept, but you do because you're obviously watching this right here. Next up, We have what's known as if you are a business owner and you're looking to not just get access to business capital, but you're looking to put a system into place that's going to allow you to get access to capital in a predictable and sustainable way. That's what we do around here. I would love to speak with you about where you're at, where you're looking to go, and see how we can help. You can book a call with us down below, insightsinnercircle.com. It's pinned as the first comment, and it's also down in the description. But let's continue on with the video. Geo Restriction. So I'm going to hopefully be able to fit this piece right here. Bang. So we have what's known as a geo restriction, and here's what that means. If you have an entity, and we typically see this a bit more with smaller banks, so I'll put on here like a little caveat, smaller banks, but it does happen with bigger banks, and I'll explain how here in a minute. So it does happen with smaller banks. And the way that it happens with smaller banks is that if your business with smaller banks is usually within, let's say if it's outside a 40 to 50 mile radius, then that means they are less likely, or most likely, I should say, will deny you when you go to apply for something as simple as a business line of credit or any type of capital. Reason for that is because with smaller banks, they essentially focus in their territory, their community, hence is why it's in the name, community banks, local banks, local credit union. They focus on the local economy. And so I would say like the sidestep to this, or the solution to remedy this, if again, your goal is to use smaller banks to fund your business, which are a fantastic tool that we always use with our clients whenever they are scaling capital, is you want to make sure that your LLC or your corp, if you have a corporation, is inside of that demographic or inside of that. You can do that by setting up what we call like a virtual office address. So this is a VA virtual office address. You can set up, you can actually have a brick and mortar as well. So an actual location, so to speak. That's fine. We can set that up as well. And then the other route that you can take, which some people do, is they set up a what's known as a foreign entity. Now, this is fine. Just keep in mind, oh, there we go. A foreign entity. This is fine. Just keep in mind that you want to keep track of the different foreign entities that you're setting up in different states, because you could end up creating what's called a nexus, which is a taxable event. And depending on how much business you're conducting inside of that state, you could end up having to pay additional fees and taxes inside of that state just because you're trying to get additional capital. So I typically recommend this piece right here for last. I would venture to say these two pieces right here are usually the go-to if, again, our goal is to go with the smaller banks. Now, when it comes to larger banks, right, it really just breaks down, or really just boils down to this right here. And they usually underwrite at the state level. All things being equal, as long as there is a couple of branches inside of your state, then you're able to do business with larger banks. Now, I always recommend, and then I'll get off of this right here, off of geo restriction. We'll move on to the next piece of why most people get denied. But I still recommend having that relationship with a business banker in person, which is something that we help our clients with, of how to form that, how to have your own team of business bankers bolted on inside of your business so you can continue to scale capital, because it defeats the algorithm and being at the mercy of the algorithm. Yes, you can apply online. Yes, you can, apply through the app, but there's nothing like having that face-to-face connection where the bank actually understands the flow of the business and you as the business owner. Next up, we have lending appetite. And I love talking about this one. So I'm just going to put app because I'm running out of space here. I love talking about lending appetite because it is one that if you can land the right financial institution specific to your business, then you're going to be able to unlock breathtaking scale with your capital. And so lending appetite simply means that your line of work, your industry, is an industry that they want to do business with. And so you're not forcing anything here. You're not having to jump through a ton of hoops, having to do a bunch of restructuring, although that's important. There's a time and a place for that, which I've addressed. But for the most part, it's synergistic, meaning, hey, we're already working with businesses just like yours. So we're already working with construction businesses. We're already working with Facebook marketing agencies just like yours. Just bring your business over here and we're going to open up the floodgates. Here's how it works with the lending appetite is I want you to think of it kind of like a lending portfolio. And so if you've ever invested with any type of software or apps, then you're used to seeing pies whenever you're investing. And so it'll probably, look like this. And then you have like a little one here and then another one here, depending on how much distribution you have. So I'm not going to fill all these in, but let's say one piece of the pie right here is consulting. You have another piece of the pie here that's med. So we'll just put medical. You have another one here that's gyms. You have another one here that's we'll do marketing. What the heck? We'll do marketing. You have another one here that is RE. So I'll just do real estate. You have another one here, right? We're probably just gonna end up filling this thing up. We have another one here. I'll do one more. Another one that's let's say, let's do trucking. What the heck? We'll do trucking. That's trucking. I screwed it up, but that's trucking. And so lending appetite, again, if we're looking at how the bank or how the community banks or how the credit union looks at their portfolio, this is simply the majority of the industry types that they've recently been funding or working with. That's what this means. And so if you are in a business that let's say with a financial institution that's been dealing with with consulting type businesses, that's when dealing with marketing type businesses, that's been dealing with helping gyms fund, grow, and scale, right? Their capital and get access to capital, then you're in the right spot. What most business owners, when they're getting, again, this is one of the reasons when they're getting denied for business capital, is they end up taking their business that's, they have stellar credit, they have their business properly dialed in terms of their LLC, they have all the paperwork, the operating agreements, articles of organization, the whole nine yard, but they're taking it to a bank that flat out doesn't do business with them. And so one of the ways that you can remedy this is asking the banker when you walk in, hey, based on what you're seeing, and this has to be a business banker, by the way, not just any banker. We do this with our clients because we have the data, but this is how you can do this in your own day-to-day if you just wanted to kind of pick one or two banks to do it with, is, hey, what are the, over the last 60 to 90 days, who's the main type, what are the main type of businesses that you guys have been working with? Okay, got it. Do you guys have a sheet on that I can get, a chart, or do you guys have any type of data that you can show me? I just want to make sure that I'm not wasting your time or my time. So that way I'm bringing a business, an LLC, a corp that we're going to be able to have a partnership with. So this is going to be a numbers game. We, again, have this data dialed in with our clients, so we just hand it to them on a silver platter. But what you can do is you can take a weekend and take 2 or 3 banks, 2 or 3 financial institutions nearby. I prefer doing that over calling them if you're just doing all the work yourself, because that way you'll have the face-to-face interaction and they'll let you know, hey, yeah, we're only working with, let's say, med spas and manufacturing companies right now in agriculture, or yeah, we're only working with construction companies, roofers, and real estate investors at this time. At least that's the majority of where our funds have been going over the last 60 days, 90 days, over the last year. By the way, one last thing that I wanted to say here before I move on to the next reason why people get denied is this changes. And so depending on where the economy is as a whole, if a specific industry, I'll use trucking as an example, is hurting, then this pie starts to kind of slim out. So they'll start to offload it, and then it'll just be trucking. We'll make up we'll make an example here, arbitrary number. We'll say that this is, let me go back. Actually, I'll leave it there. We'll say that this is 8% of what, let's say, they lend to, versus maybe what it used to be. It was maybe 15%, which means they're actually starting to risk mitigate, which is where those denials come from. Next up, we have a weak business credits rating. I did a full video on this. I'll probably link it on here, but in essence, I won't hit on this too long because I would like for you to see that video, because I actually break down what a strong business credit rating needs to look like. So it'll probably pop up in a little tab right here, depending on where YouTube decides to put it. But a business credit rating differs from a business credit score, meaning If you are looking at a business credit rating, it typically goes from 1 to a 5, right? Business credit score usually goes from 1 to 100. Some scores are like 1 to 1,000 or 100 to 1,000. Some scores are like 1 to 440. And so it's all over the place. But business credit ratings, typically, if you're looking at Experian, and Dun& Bradstreet, they have risk ratings. And so this is one of the ways that banks, again, mitigate risk and why most people get denied, unfortunately. And it goes from 1 to 5. But what you want to do is you want to be between 1 and a 2, because the higher that is, the more likely you are to get denied. And so the lower the score is, the better it is in this case. And so what are some of the things that they're looking at is they're taking a look at total credit limits. So taking a look at total credit limits. By the way, this is for financial accounts, not just net 30s, net 45s. That's typically what most people are used to, which are paydex scores. And when I say they, I mean the risk rating. They're taking a look at more the total credit limits on the financial side. They're taking a look at the total usage of those business credit limits. They are grading your repayment history. So right here, they're taking a look at your repayment history. Next up, they are looking at your industry as a whole. That piece is super important, because if you're used to how a personal credit score works, which is just your repayment history and your usage, essentially that's 65% of the FICO score, which is this piece right here. If you notice, a personal credit history has nothing to do with you as a person, with where you were born, your gender, what you do for a living. That's not the case in a risk rating. As you can see here, they are very much so looking at your industry. They're also, had my eraser out, my bad guys. They're also taking a look at number of employees, if you have them, number of employees. And then the last piece of data, by the way, there's more data that goes into this, but the last piece of data is, I'll just write it out, likelihood of default. My bad. So it's likelihood, let me back up. There we go. Likelihood of default, specifically a 12-month window. That's what they're looking at. Over a 12-month window, it's the likelihood of a default. And the way that they do this is they take a look at your industry. They take a look at how well you've been making these payments on time, your total usage, and then your time in business. And then they just run it through their algorithm with also the amount of employees that you have. And then it spits out this rating right here, which is 1 to a 2. Now, the reason why this is going to be important for you to know is that banks more and more are starting to look at risk ratings, not just personal credit scores. We're seeing that across the board. And so you'll want to have your personal credit score in place, but then you also want to have your business credit score and your business credit ratings, building that out, because that's how you continue to not just mitigate the denials that you're potentially running into or will potentially run into if this isn't in place, but also your ability to scale capital. And the last piece right here is total lending exposure. So we have total lending, I'm going to put right here, EXP, total lending exposure. Here's how this works. Every bank, every credit union, every financial institution is going to have their own ceiling initially. And so there are two ceilings that we typically see. The first ceiling is going to be a personal ceiling, meaning this is how much you as a person or how much each social security number is going to have initially. Sometimes that ceiling is, as much as $150 per borrower. And then you have your business ceiling as well. So you have your business cap. And that's, again, initially. So I'll put like a little star next to it. And that's usually, right between, I already had a dollar sign on there, right between 150 to right around 250. Again, this varies depending on where the economy is. It varies on who the bank is, the lending institution, the industry as a whole. But the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because sometimes when somebody is, and I'll bring it all the way back up, full circle moment. Check this out. When we are doing, let's say, a funding sequence, or let's say I should say, are doing a funding sequence, this wall right here, we'll swap it out. And let's say maybe it's not cap. Maybe it's not the cap stack that you run into. Maybe it's the total lending exposure. So we'll just put total lending. And what that means is you got 75K with said bank, and then you go back in and you think that you're maybe working with another bank, but you're still landing inside of the same network. So a good example of this is Elon Financial. They underwrite over 1,500 banks across the country. And so what you don't realize is that you're still submitting an application to fund your business inside of the same lending pool. So you've essentially maxed out the possibility of funding for that business because, again, you're still hitting the same network. You're fishing in the same pond, so you're catching the same fish. And so you're thinking, man, like I went to 4 different banks and I'm still stuck at 75, or I'm still stuck at 125, or I'm still stuck at 200. What gives? Number one is, again, you're most likely hitting the same financial institutions inside of the same network. Or number two, you've just flat out maxed out the amount of funding that you can get given your situation at that bank. And so I'm going to give you 2 reasons. There's a couple more than that, but I'm going to give you really 2 reasons or 2 ways, I'd say, to mitigate that. So A, they're going to want to see more financials. So if you're going for like the no doc stuff, then at that point, you're just going to have to pick a new bank because you're not going to be able to move around it unless you can show financials, P&Ls, tax returns, statements. Bank statements are actually pretty good. So you can use bank statements as well, especially if you're cash flowing, but you don't have tax returns just yet. And then B is if you have a strong rating. If you have a strong business score rating. So actually right here, if you have right here, strong business credit rating, I should say, not business score rating, business credit rating. That's how you can help offset. These are just 2 ways that we do it. You can help offset hitting this cap right here if you feel like, man, I'm hitting this wall and I can't get past, 75 with this bank. I'm hitting this wall and I can't get past 150. So that's essentially it when it comes to some reasons of why I'm starting to see more and more people get denied for business capital. We look at files constantly. We are dealing with clients at the 6-figure level, 7-figure level, 8-figure level. And so it happens at all levels. It's not just, hey, once they hit this certain amount of income or revenue, then they're good, they're golden. No, they're still bottlenecks at every phase. And so if you found this helpful, and if you want to see more of this type of stuff, let me know down in the comments, because really I create stuff that you guys want to see, and stuff like this is really fun for me to break down. But other than that, if you want our help and if you want our team to take a look at where you're at, how much capital you're looking to get access to, and more importantly, put a system into place that's going to help you get access to capital as you continue to scale, we'll love to talk to you. You can book a call with us over on insightsinnercircle.com. I'll go ahead and pin that as the first comment and down in the description. But other than that, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.